And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. I'm David Burnett, your host for this evening, joined by the fellas. Chuck Snowden, how you doing?
I'm doing good, David. You know, it's Wednesday, 8 o'clock. I look forward to getting together with you guys and cutting up this week in sports.
Larry Abels, how are you?
It's all good on this end, David. How about yourself?
I'm doing great here in Indianapolis. And Earl, go Rush, the sports doctor. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, David, and I'm looking forward to discussing all the exciting activities in sports this weekend.
All right, sir. Let's get busy. We got a lot of basketball to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about the men. For the first time in a couple of weeks, we're going to have the men go first. The men's championship game, UConn Huskies win again. Let me start with you, Earl. Your thoughts about just generally the tournament and the UConn Huskies.
I thought the tournament was pretty good. As I've reiterated several times this year, I wasn't really excited about all the talent in the NCAA men's division, but the tournament was pretty good. It was pretty good. I thought Connecticut was awesome. I had picked them to win second year in a row, but it was pretty obvious. Nobody can brag about their picks because it's obvious that Connecticut is just better than anybody. So it's nothing to go around and brag about. I mean, unless you were blind, you could see that they wasn't going to win. But I thought it was a pretty good series, and I thought Connecticut was great.
Okay. Larry Abels, your thoughts about the tournament, the men, and UConn, very briefly.
I generally had a very similar view as Earl. I thought the two best teams made it there. At least the two teams that played most consistently in the tournament got there. But I really thought that UConn was a stronger team, and you know they did Purdue just like everyone else. If Purdue couldn't give them a game, I don't think anybody else could, and really no one else did.
And Chuck, your thoughts about the season?
I agree with Gogo and with Larry. What's interesting, though, is how good Connecticut was, and yet I don't know if we were talking about them all year long, meaning the country. They were really, really, really good, better than I had anticipated, even in this tournament. I mean, they won most of their games by 30 points or more. That's a pretty dominant bunch, given the fact they sent 3 people to the NBA last year. So I was very impressed. Very complete ball club, very complete.
Let's just talk about the game as much as we can, and I'll start with you, Chuck, and finish up with that. UConn and Purdue kind of back and forth early in the game, but then UConn kind of broke it up. Yeah. What happened? Why did that happen?
Purdue couldn't hit shots, right? They were 1 for 7 from 3. That's just, Edey was dominant. He had, 37? He was dominant. But the folks from the outside just couldn't hit. And on the other side, Connecticut was so well balanced, everyone contributed. And they were making their shots. I don't know how many threes they made. I think they hit 6 of them. But I think that's what it came down to. Purdue didn't hit their shots, and Connecticut did.
Well, let me ask you, Larry, if Purdue had hit some three-pointers, 1 out of 7, they're the number 2 3-point shooting team in the country, according statistically. But they were 1 of 7. If they'd have hit 3, would it have been more respectable an outcome, even though I think Connecticut still would have won? What do you think?
Yeah, but you got to figure some of those they hit would have been points that Edey got. If Edey was still going to get 37, they were going to hit some shots. Certainly, it would have been more respectable. I think Kentucky had a much more flexible offense.
You mean Connecticut?
Excuse me, yeah, Connecticut had a much more flexible offense and defense. And really, what I saw in the second half, they were also making Edey work on the defensive end. He was blocking a lot of shots early in the game, but in the second half, they were scoring inside on him. They were hitting layups.
Earl, you predicted correctly that UConn would run through the tournament. Why'd you think so? And your thoughts about the game itself and why the outcome turned out to be?
Oh, I thought that I picked them because, like I said earlier, it's obvious that Connecticut was a better team than them. But I said that basically because besides the center, Edie, Iowa didn't have any other threats. They didn't have any other threats, and I just think it was going to be hard for one person to beat that Connecticut team because they play so well together. That was the main reason why I said it. And of course, I don't like the Big Ten, and I dog them all the time. That's not why I picked them like that. I just could see that they just didn't have anybody but Edie. They just didn't have anybody. They didn't have anybody.
Well, I kind of agree with you on that score, Earl. You know, I'm a Purdue fan. I've been a Purdue fan ever since I was a kid, but Purdue had some weaknesses that can't really be overcome. They didn't have any horses next to Edie. And when it comes time to hit important shots, they don't hit them. They don't, and they're not very athletic. At least this version of Purdue is not very athletic. So I hoped and prayed that they would have a perfect game, but they weren't even close to perfect. Speaking of Purdue, the player of the year, two-time national player of the year, Zach Edey from Toronto, Canada. He's looking like he will be in the lottery as a pick. Let's analyze his potential NBA future. Does he have one? I'll start with you, Earl.
I think he has one for sure. He's not going to be Elijah one or Shaq anybody, but he definitely has a future in the NBA. I used to think he was a walking stiff. He's not a walking stiff. He's okay. The guy's all right. I think he'll have a decent career in the NBA myself. That's what I think.
Larry, your thoughts about Zach Edey's potential future?
Oh, I think he'll definitely be an NBA player, no doubt about that. I wonder about his ability to play the pick and roll. He likes to lay back. In an NBA, you definitely have to play that defense. Also worry about his lateral movement. Mm-hmm. But he did show me a couple of weak side blocks the other day. But my biggest concern, if he has a guard, a mobile center, or teams that are good at the pick and roll, he may be challenged. He may get better, though.
Okay. Chuck.
I don't know. I hate to be the contrarian. I just don't think in the NBA they play that way much anymore with the post-up center who just, stands down in the post and plays with their back to the basket. I think he is slow. I think he'll be in the pros, and I think he'll be in the pros for a few years. I just don't know if he's going to make a difference.
Let me offer.
What's his comparable in the pros currently?
I don't know. I don't know that there is a comparable guy right now in the pros.
I'll tell you a guy like somebody like Minnesota center. He's a little more agile on defense, and that's why I keep harping about his defense.
Okay.
Gobert. I mean, if he can get his footwork together, he can guard the rim.
Let me offer you guys this thought on Zach Edey, because I've watched him since he was a freshman. He has literally gotten better by 20 and 30% every single year. He's working on his game. His attitude is right, and he wants to get better. He's only played organized basketball for 7 years. My prediction is I don't think he's going to be a great NBA player, but I think he will be a serviceable player who will get about 15 to 20 minutes or more, depending on his improvement. But he's improved. He's not going to be static. What you saw of Zach Edey this year is not what you're going to see with him next year, because he'll get better. Because, Earl, you talked about him being, you wondered whether he was a walking stiff. Well, he was. When he was a freshman, he could do nothing. He was bad. But he's gotten literally better every single year. And most players achieve a certain level and stay there. So I'll give him a fair chance to be decent in the NBA.
Let me ask you guys this.
Go ahead, Earl.
What happened to Yao Ming? Did he get hurt or something?
He's not having injuries. He's not having injury problems.
Do you think that this gentleman will be as effective as Yao Ming by the time he finishes developing?
He could be. But Yao Ming had a lot of basketball in him before he came to the NBA. That's the difference.
And the world was different. We played differently then.
We played differently, but there's a role. I mean, Rudy Gobert in Minnesota and previously in Utah is that guy, but he has certain skills, certain things he does that are effective. So it depends on whatever team wants him to do that role. So
I'm
hopeful for him.
As I listen to you describe the development of Edie, and you're right, he has developed. I think back to, and us Washingtonians might be remember when Georgetown had a guy named Roy Hibbert.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we know about Roy Hibbert in Indianapolis.
I know. Right, he played with the Pacers. So when Hibbert got to Georgetown, I mean, his feet were going this. I just didn't think he would ever become an effective center. And he never became super great, but he was good enough to make the pros. He got through the first contract, and he signed a big contract with the Pacers. And then the league started to change with big centers like him.
And he got washed out of the league.
Exactly.
I mean, he didn't develop all aspects of his game. But I think because he was part of the early development of a change in the NBA, he wasn't able to adapt. I think Edie knows he's got to develop a shot. He's got to develop some better foot movement. But he played soccer. He's agile. I think his mentality is, I'm going to be better. So I'm prayerful and hopeful that he'll be better. Got another question real quick, gentlemen, on the men's game. Danny Hurley, two-time national basketball champion, brother of Bobby Hurley from Duke. He's something. What do y'all think of Danny Hurley? Is he a little bit too much? Is he just a great coach? Could he get out of control? I think all of those things are possible. Larry, let me start with you.
He seems to be a very good coach to me. You know, he seems, one thing that I like about him, and I'll say the same thing about Don Staley, they adjust to the talent that they have as opposed to saying it's simply got to be my way or the highway with respect to style of play. But he seems pretty good. They have a lot of good athletes on their team, and he knows how to get the most out of them.
Mm-hmm. Chuck.
Hey, good evening, Greg. Thanks for checking in with us. I agree with you, Larry. Hurley is pretty good, man. He really is. And they run their stuff. Like, you watch that team on offense, man. They're cutting and moving, and everybody's touching balls, and they're in the right space, and they got spacing. I was very impressed. I'm just surprised. And maybe because I'm focused on the Big Ten so much or others, I just hadn't checked out UConn enough. They really, they play a beautiful brand of basketball, in my opinion. Early's done a good job.
Earl.
I was focused, but I got unfocused when I saw this craziness that CJ had posted across there, and it just threw me off. There's no way that he's going to be a player like Tim Duncan, Zach Edey.
No.
I don't know what CJ's talking about, but enough about that foolishness.
Share it with us. But whatever you are smoking, share it with us.
What was the question? What was the question that you wanted me to address, David?
Just in terms of Zach Edey's future talents in the NBA or wherever professionally he may end up playing.
I thought you were talking about Hurley.
Oh, we're talking about Danny Hurley. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, the coach.
Right.
I mean, the guys won back to back. I mean, what can I say? I mean, he's won back to back championships. There's only been 3 other teams that have done that. I mean, I think he's great. I don't know how great a coach he is, but I know he must be a heck of a recruiter because they have a great team.
Will Connecticut be in position to win a national championship next year, Earl? Just real quickly. Yes, no.
Will they have their big man this year?
He looks like he may be a candidate for the NBA.
Cleveland.
They'll be in position, but it all depends on who transfer portals and all that.
Right.
I can't say for sure if that big man is not going to be there for sure. I can't say it, but I think they'll be in position to probably win. Yeah, there'll probably be another big man who want to go there or something. You know?
Larry, next year for UConn.
Depends on the makeup of the team and how other teams may have matured and other players they may pick up through the transfer portal or recruit. It's supposed to be a stellar freshman class coming in next year that everyone's hyped about. So,
okay,
we'll see.
Chuck.
I like that freshman they have on that team now, Stephen Castle. He's a 6'6" guard forward from Georgia, and I thought he was tough. I just don't. Again, I don't know why I didn't know more about these guys and these players, but I think they'll be right there in the mix next year as well.
All right, let us now turn to the ladies who dominated the attention of all of basketball fans. The University of South Carolina Gamecocks, the Lady Gamecocks, led by Dawn Staley. Let me start with you, Larry. Thoughts about Dawn Staley, thoughts about South Carolina?
Oh, I like Dawn Staley as a coach. She seems to be a class act, and anytime you lose your starting five to the WNBA and you can bounce back with a different style of ball and different players, maybe even had better players last year, but, they lost one game at a crucial time. She came back and won. My hat goes off to a class act, knows a good representative for the university. Every time anything remotely controversial came up, I thought she always spoke up correctly, and she was very graceful in her remarks when she won.
Chuck.
So let me make this clear, America. I love Dawn
Can't even say her name. Come on now.
I'm sorry, Dawn Staley and the University of South Carolina ladies. They are a heck of a ball club. She's a heck of a coach, heck of an organization. I love them. They're fantastic. And I was truly impressed in the run that they had this year.
Earl.
I think Dawn has been a great coach. And I think, honestly, I think that they'll win. I think they might win 3 in a row. It seems to have the organization together. The possibility that they might win 3 in a row. So
I got to tell you, I'm very proud of what Dawn Staley has done as a coach, because all of us, all 4 of us have witnessed a lot of times where African-American men and women are not given the kind of accolades and bouquets that they deserve, and credit for their intellect and guidance as leaders. So I'm really happy for her, and I think she can win a lot of championships. Let's turn to
the talent is spread out though now.
Go ahead.
I think we found out this year that the talent is spread out throughout this country, and there's a lot of good players. And I just saw the other day where UConn just signed the #1 high school player in the country who will be coming to UConn next year. And they also had 6 ladies on their bench. They made it to the Final Four, and they had 6 ladies on their bench who were hurt that didn't participate in those games. So even though I think Dawn will be fine because she is excellent, it's going to be fun to watch next year and see what happens with all of these teams.
All right, let's talk about Caitlin Clark. We've talked a little bit about her for the last several weeks, deservedly so, and she was the linchpin, the spark that set the all-time record for women's basketball viewing, 18 million. It just grew week by week for viewers. Let me start with you, Larry. What is behind that? And is it just Caitlin Clark, or is the interest in college basketball, women's college basketball, growing? What do you think?
I think it's been growing anyway, and she was kind of like the right person at the right time. You guys heard me talk about the hype machine, and every now and then the media will find someone that can carry the load. I thought Deion Sanders did that early football season, and she was the right person for basketball. I think the talent has been there. I think the talent in the WNBA is actually pretty good. And it's always been, for the last few years, the talent has been spread out across the country. The thing with the interest in her drew a lot of other people into college basketball and got a lot more eyes on her, obviously, as they've been showing. So she's had a great impact on college basketball, and I hope it continues in women's basketball in general. I hope people continue to watch it, and I'm a basketball fan. Good basketball is good basketball to me. So I hope her impact, her legacy, keeps it in college, and I hope it impacts the WNBA.
Let me ask you, Earl, what can the women's basketball gain and do with this momentum? How do you see this going forward, or is it just a one-time thing?
Well, I see it going forward, and I think that wow. Senior moments. I think that it's not just happening this time. I think that the people are enjoying basketball more. Not just because of Caitlin, but just in general. There's a lot of talent in the ladies divisions in the NCAA and the WNBA. There's a lot of talent coming on. So I don't think it's just because of Caitlin Clark, but she definitely has a lot to do with the situation that's going on. That's for sure. That's all I can tell you. Sorry about the senior moments, guys.
No problem. We're all seniors and we all have the moment. I'm having one right now.
Well,
Anyway.
usually Larry helps me out, but I was so way off. He couldn't even try to figure out how to help me out. He's like, what is he trying to say? He's just rambling and shit. But
your interval of uncertainty was really quite brief. I think our viewers didn't even recognize that.
I like that interval of uncertainty. I like that.
Don't hurt yourself, Charles.
Larry is a very articulate man.
Well,
very articulate man. Anyway, 18 million viewers watched the championship game. 15 million viewers watched the semifinal game. 12 million viewers watched the week before. What can we do with that? What do we say about that? Is it and what is it? You know, the men drew 14 million and then less than that along the way. The women outdrew the men the whole way. The women, to be honest, and I know I may get some flack. Women are not as good at basketball as men in general, generally speaking. They're not as tall, they're not as fast, they can't dunk as often. So what is going on? Let's try to break that down. Let me start with you, Chuck.
So I think in sports, things happen. Certain people. When Tiger Woods, golf has been going on for years. There's been great golfers like Jack Nicklaus, blah, blah, blah. And then Tiger came along. And we got the country, the people, everybody started watching. My mom was watching. He was the match or something. Now, when he went away, things went back to normal, right? Same with maybe Michael and LeBron and maybe even on some level Serena. I think that Caitlin brought that something special, and maybe it's because she shot deep threes. I don't know, but I was riveted. The country was riveted, and I think she has the it factor. Will it translate to the WNBA? Again, I don't know, but boy, it was fun while this ride lasted from last year through this year.
Larry.
Well, I'll go back, and what Chuck is saying is similar to what I started off earlier. The right person at the right time. She got a lot of attention and lived up to it, and she was appealing. Far as the I don't care about casual viewers, but that's who she has. If I worked for the network, I probably would. But she's just flat out good, and if you like basketball, you should just watch her, as well as other women out there.
Right,
Earl.
Well, I think Caitlin Clark is great and everything. And all. I have a question, and I don't mean to be negative or anything. As far as viewers, before Caitlin Clark, I'm just asking. Before Caitlin Clark, was there any European lady or non-Latino lady or non-black woman? Who was everybody cheering for before Caitlin Clark?
Well, there was a great guy.
There's plenty of them.
Sue Bird, Taurasi.
Sue Bird, Diana
Brianna
Taurasi.
Brianna Stewart.
Hold on, guys. They weren't hyping none of those people you named, even Diana Taurasi. None of them were being hyped like Caitlin Clark.
Oh, I agree with that.
None of them.
Well, can I offer you this thought, gentlemen, and our viewers? What tends to happen is that somehow something with the populace caught on. I think personally, you may agree or disagree. I think it was her shooting and her passing. No woman up to this point was shooting from the logo. It's the Steph Curry effect in women's basketball, and she's the one that was kind of the first to really take that on, and people loved it because that's, if a woman is shooting from 25 feet and hitting, what woman was doing that, and the media followed it.
The second part,
everything has to happen. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, the second part, the media following. The lady that took on Steph Curry in the 3-point contest, she shoots like that. Sabrina, I can't think of her last name.
Ionesco.
Yeah, she shoots like that, but she hasn't had the following.
But she hadn't caught the public's attention either. And I think it's also because women's college basketball, even though it's growing exponentially, is way bigger than the WNBA. Way bigger. They have 12 women coaches who are making more than $1 million as coaches. So it's a business at the college level.
But she was winning, though. It wasn't just that Caitlin was shooting from 3 and that she's a hell of a passer and a great teammate. That team, which looked like the little engine that could, was winning. They were beating these incredible 5-star McDonald All-American bunched teams with these incredible coaches. They were winning. How in the world is that team winning? And I find that was, to me, that was part of the aura too. That not only was she doing the things you suggested, David, but they were winning.
That makes a difference. And they are back-to-back in the final game of the national championship.
With that mob. So Earl had a question. So I want to ask this question. And I've tried to ask it a couple of times on Facebook and people misrepresented the way I asked it. So I want to ask this group. So if you were the coach of Iowa, and you played in the national championship game, and we have the portal and all this other stuff going on, why would you run your team? Why would you just run it back with the team that you had after losing 2 seniors and not add a piece or two? Because that team got all the way to the finals again, but they didn't have enough players. They didn't have. I don't understand why she didn't add people to that team. I really don't understand that.
Well,
can you guys answer that?
I can't answer.
I think running it back justified itself. The only team they couldn't beat was a team that nobody could beat.
More the reason why. Why wouldn't you add 1 or 2 players to your team?
Who wants to go to Iowa?
She thought she had a good team. She beat the team that beat her last year.
Right.
I don't. Now, Earl, you say who wants to go to Iowa? Well, I think the whole college dynamic is different. I mean, who wants to go to Alabama? Who wants to go to Carolina for real? I've been there. Don't want to go there often.
Right.
But if you're playing sports, you're in a whole cocoon of an environment that's different, and you're being coddled and supported and probably financed. That's why you go to the big schools. Iowa is a big school.
I can't fault the coach. I mean, she put together a good team. They beat the team that won the championship last year. They beat everybody except for the one team that nobody could beat, who they happened to beat last year.
Right. I mean, all those teams added pieces, Larry, and this lady did not. And by the way,
what difference did it make?
This weekend, their bench scored 0 points, Larry. They played 40 minutes.
I understand, but
none of those girls are going to the WNBA. But
I think you might be underestimating the Staley, the sophomore, the center. Yeah, I think she could play. She got a lot better than last year. Great hands and great touch and everything. And if she continues to improve, they're going to certainly miss Clark. But really, how are you going to knock what the coach did when?
I'm not knocking it. I'm impressed.
I mean, she brought back the squad that gosh, if it weren't for South Carolina, they would have won the championship.
Let me say this to wrap this discussion up real quickly. What have we learned about the popularity and the sudden popularity and great viewership of women's basketball? What do we learn from that, and how can it be built on so that it's not just a one and done thing? Earl, what do we learn? You're a great promoter. What do they have to do?
What I learned from this is there's a certain portion of America that needed a hero.
Mm-hmm.
A hero came around back to the right place at the right time. See, America needed a hero. Obviously, there's a portion of United States that needed a hero.
Great.
Caitlin Clark came by. America's backing their hero. That's all. I'm not gonna say it had anything to do about color, race, or whatever. They needed a hero. Here comes the hero. We got our hero.
And she complied. She fit the bill. Chuck.
And she was an underdog. That team, I thought, a lot of times were the underdog, the little engine that could, and they did. And so, David, I think it's hard to manufacture stuff. I think it has to happen. The person has to come along. The situation has to present itself. And like Larry mentioned, the lady in the NBA, WNBA, that can shoot like Caitlin, maybe she is just as good as Caitlin and can shoot even better than Caitlin. But maybe things weren't set up right at the exact time. So I think it's hard to manufacture it. I think Bird and Magic came along the right time, and it took off. So I'm waiting to see what happens with the WNBA, but I have really enjoyed college ladies basketball, and I'm looking forward to it to next year because of the people like Earl mentioned to us earlier in the year, people like Juju Watkins, and she's just a freshman. So
Larry,
anyway, we'll see.
To wrap this up, what do you think?
Media coverage. I mean, it was packaged. That's it. I think their game has probably been good because I've been watching them, the women for the last few years, and I've seen them growing in popularity. It's something that I think we talked about offline. Their players stay there. They get some continuity. We have juniors and seniors there, and they actually get better. We got guys in the men that leave, and we never hear from them again. They're the G League. And the fact that when and the other part of the media is looking to make money, they found the right person at the right time, and she delivered.
Is there an analogous example comparison that we can make between the growth of men's basketball and the NBA in particular and what's happening potentially with women's basketball sparked by Caitlin Clark, and maybe to a lesser degree, but even more important, Dawn Staley? Is there a way we can kind of make a comparison or contrast? And we'll conclude our discussion of women's basketball with this question. Chuck.
She's like a female version of Steph Curry. So maybe, like Steph took average sized kids and people who thought, hey, wait a minute, if I can just improve my shooting, I can play in this thing called basketball. I don't have to be a freak sized person and have incredible speed and athleticism. And I think that was also part of what she did, because people can look at her and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I can do that too. And I mean 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. So they're going to say, Daddy, 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 take me to the game or take me to the playground and let me work on my shot. And I think that might happen for the ladies on the ladies' side. So it'll be interesting to see how this all develops.
Larry.
Kind of a complex issue here, but I'll draw the analogy to the NBA. In the 70s and early 80s, the NBA was not very popular, and for a lot of reasons that I think have socioeconomic underpinnings. But what the NBA did that was small that the WNBA should do and college basketball has done, they decided to let you know their stars. So they really focus on you get to know their stars, as opposed to football, you take your helmet off as a penalty. They wanted you to know who their players are. But I think the networks who have something to gain by this can develop more stars in women's basketball, especially since they stay there and we get a chance to know them in college. And if they play it right, I look for the WNBA to reap some of those benefits.
Earl.
To answer your question, I don't think that we can compare. I think only time will give us a chance to compare the situation to the NBA. Only time will be able to tell that. Because right now, it's hot right now. For some reason next year, whatever, it may die down. It may not, or it may just get more popular. I can't answer that until time to answer your question.
Okay.
I'll tell you one last thing, one last comment too, real quick.
Sure.
In Georgetown in the mid '80s, when they had Patrick Ewing and John Thompson, that thing took on a life of its own too, and became extremely popular, and people were watching, and the Big East was growing. And that too had some social, economic, but it was popular as heck. Everybody wanted to see it, just like the Lakers and the Celtics back in those days as well. So,
but let me just say this as a way to conclude that point. But when you talk about the 80s, we have to keep in mind and never forget that the viewing options were still less than, even though cable was growing. The viewing options were less than. So you didn't have a whole lot of choice in what you were able to view. For instance, Reggie Miller's sister, Cheryl Miller, when USC won the women's championship, I think a couple of years in a row, I think they drew over 10 million viewers.
So did they?
But that was for then. I mean, I Love Lucy drew 50 million viewers a week. I mean, so it was a different time. So we all have to
networks will figure out a way to make money off of it, just like they.
Oh, absolutely.
It's right there in their face that we have a whole half the population untapped, with women's basketball, right there, and men like it too. That's all right.
Let's go to the NBA. The regular season ends on Sunday. It's been a heck of a ride. 82 games plus one for the Lakers. What do we think? And let me start with Earl. What do you think of the NBA regular season overall, just generally, before we get into specifics?
I thought the season was pretty good, actually, because there seemed to be a lot of parity in the league, because you see the West Coast and East Coast conferences, they're both tight. Everybody pretty much has the same amount of talent on their teams. That's from what I've seen so far this year.
Okay. Larry.
I'm loving it because there's still a lot of jockeying for playoff position at the top and the bottom. Only concern, and it's been a great season. Only concern is all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, there've been significant injuries. Malik Monk has a strained MCL. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. And if we have a team like Sacramento that won 48 games last year, that finished third, they've won 45 this year with 3 games left, but they're down in the playoffs and they're missing him. And Giannis hurt his leg last night in a great game that was going back and forth. Hardly any fouls called. I think it was only 2 fouls called, but he had a non-contact injury. So I'm excited, but I'm also a little concerned right now.
Yeah.
I hope the playoffs fire me up, because I just haven't been that impressed with. I don't know. I just haven't been. My juices haven't gotten flowing with the NBA yet. I hope the playoffs will do it for me. I think Earl said it right. I think there's so much parity that I think anybody can beat anybody. I mean, the Bucks were playing terrible, and the Celtics let them crush them last night. Like, I don't understand the NBA. So hopefully when the playoffs get started, everyone will get serious. Defense will be played, and maybe it'll catch my attention more than it has caught it so far this year.
Let's ask you guys about, and I'll start with you, Larry, about the whole play-in aspect of the playoffs. Is it something, I think it's the second year for the play-in part of the playoffs? Is it good? What do you think about it? Is it fair?
Well, I think it's interesting. It's kept a lot more interest. I think now we know who's at least going to be in the play-in. I think all the teams that have a chance to be in the play-in have clinched those spots. But it's like in the West, it's like 5 teams, and only one of them won't be in the last 4. And they're all battling each other, and they play each other this week. I think it's a great interest there. And same thing in the East for that matter. There's a couple of teams that can move up, like Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Most teams don't want to be in that play-in because it could be a one and done for you.
Earl, play-in.
I don't like it. I don't like it. The NBA feel like they get too tricky. It is drawing more interest, which I guess that was their goal. So, but I don't like it. I come in 7th place. There's a possibility that I don't get to be in the playoffs or something. That's kind of crazy, man. Get out of here. Somebody come in 10th, I come in 7th. I don't. No, it's dumb to me.
All right, Chuck.
So 2 of the teams, the Lakers and Golden State, they're playing really, really good basketball right now. Really good basketball, and they're in 9th and 10th place. And do I think they can beat OKC and Minnesota and Dallas? Yeah, I do. I do believe that. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know. So I'm hoping that the games, once they start being for real and they're playing for something, I hope it takes off for me. It just right now I'm struggling a little bit.
All right. The other question for the NBA, before we get to a wrap-up point. Who is the NBA's best player? Now, I'm distinguishing this differently from the most valuable player. There are really great basketball players in the NBA. Who is right now in 23-24 the best basketball player in the NBA? Chuck, let me start with you.
I've been thinking about this a lot because I knew this question was going to come up. And I think I will go with, right now, today, Luka Doncic.
Okay, he's the best player in the NBA.
He's averaging 34 points a game. He's averaging 10 assists a game and 9 rebounds a game. And him and Kyrie have Dallas right there in the mix. And every night that guy does his thing, I think that's my guy right now, today.
Larry, best player, not necessarily the MVP. Best player.
I understand. It's funny because I saw both SAG come from 20 points down. I saw Anthony Edwards come from 20 points down. They got 40 and 50 points. I like Luka. Still like the Joker. Gosh, if I got to pick one, I'll probably go with Chuck. I'll say Luka. I mean, he's certainly playing as well as anybody else.
I cannot argue that.
Those other guys are playing great too, though.
They are. Well, you're right. You're right.
Earl, best player.
Is it SAG or is it SGA?
You're probably right. SGA. Shea
Gilgeous-Alexander.
All right,
Thank you, sir. Thank
you
you.
know how funny I am. I'm just funny about you.
I had an interval of uncertainty too. Okay.
Luka Doncic is the best player in the NBA right now.
What makes him so good, Earl?
Because he can do everything. He may not can't guard nobody, but I don't think anybody in the NBA can guard anybody anyway. So I don't usually hold defense against anyone. But he can do it all. He's unstoppable. Luka Doncic is unstoppable. And everybody's going to look at me like I'm crazy, talking about recency bias or whatever. He's just as talented as Larry Bird was.
He's starting to be. My player, I got to keep giving it to him, is Nikola Jokic. I think he's the best player in basketball. But we have so many that are right in the conversation. I mean, Luka is there, Jokic is there, Giannis is there, and then we have a little bit of a drop off. But the kid from Minnesota is fabulous. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, fabulous player. I mean, my goodness, I don't think we've seen this much actual talent.
Terrible commercial though. Terrible commercial him and Chet Holmgren have. I hate
Why do you dislike? I think it's kind of. I don't
think nobody even knows who they are. I don't think nobody. I think America has
this is how you introduce people to the media, to the marketplace.
You knew who they were, Chuck. And you don't know nothing, but you knew that.
No, it's funny. Charles, my son didn't know.
Well, the NBA is working on making sure you know who Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is, that Chet Holmgren is known, and that commercial is kind of cute.
Really?
You know, and Chet Holmgren is runner-up for Rookie of the Year behind the big boy from France.
The NBA has been listening to our show, and every week David says the NBA needs to market the small market teams, and they're listening to him, and that's what they're doing. That's all.
I had a conversation with the commissioner just the other Anyway, real quickly before we leave, speaking of the NBA, Bronny James has submitted his name to the NBA draft
and portal.
Well, let's just speak about the NBA. Is Bronny James, aka LeBron James Jr., 6'2" tall? Does he have a chance to be good without his daddy in the NBA? I know that was kind of snarky for me to say that. Larry.
I don't think his daddy's gonna, with respect to him being good, his dad has nothing to do with it. Now, his dad might have something to do with him being on someone's team. Certainly, averaging 4.8 points a game does not look like he's NBA ready this year. And it might be a number of factors. His heart condition could have held him back, or maybe he's just not that good. I don't know. But I think he has a good chance of being on someone's team as part of a package with his father.
All right, Chuck.
Does
Ronnie James.
Does the president, whose name was George Bush, if his name wasn't George Bush, would he have been president of the United States, David?
Probably not.
Okay, so that's just the way things work, right? His name is James. He's LeBron's son. Is he worse than Pat Beverly or some of these other guys at the end of some of these benches?
Look, yeah, he's worse than Pat Beverly.
I don't know.
He's worse than Pat Beverly.
I don't know that he is, Larry.
Well, right now we're going to say that he's worse than Pat Beverly.
Yes, he definitely is worse than Pat
Beverly play.
I mean, but in 5 years he'll be better than Pat Beverly, and Pat Beverly will be 5 years older. So that'll be that. Real quickly, we got the Masters.
Giannis's brother sits at the end of that bench of the Bucks for the last 3 years. He'll never play.
Has it only been 3 years? Has it only been 3 years?
It might be longer. That's a good point.
I think it's been with them
sometimes nepotism works, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, Giannis has the kind of clout where he can have his brother at the end of the bench.
So does LeBron James.
Well, that's in doubt. We'll see. We'll see.
We will.
Ronnie James.
You may think he does, but we'll have to.
Well, keep in mind his name is LeBron James Jr.
Well,
okay.
The real thing is LeBron James is an unrestricted free agent, and he may want that as part of the deal.
And I think teams will think about that.
Okay,
anyway,
so listen to this.
Wes LeBron
had the clout, right?
Hold on. Go ahead, Earl.
LeBron had the clout, so Charles says. Okay, so going by that, it ain't no problem for LeBron to just tell the Lakers to sign my boy. Is that correct?
Correct.
If he's got the clout, if he had the clout, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Correct. Well, let me tell you this right now. If LeBron James stays with the Lakers, LeBron James will not be on the Lakers team next year. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
So we'll see what kind of clout LeBron has.
Well, but the other thing is all he needs is one team. All he needs is one team to do it. And some team will want him, what he'll do to the box office.
Well, what I'm saying is, okay, he's got the clout, so you guys say. That's LeBron James. That's his name. If why would he want to leave to another team? The Lakers got a good team. If he had the clout, all he got to say is Simon. Why did he have to go to another team?
I'm not saying that that's.
It shouldn't matter what team he go to if he's got the clout that you all think that he still has.
Well, I mean, that'll be the thing. If he wants to leave Los Angeles, that'll play into it too.
Why would he want to leave Los Angeles? All his
love of his son. When I retired, I took a job, and I did not want to work. But my deal was, you got to hire my son. My son found his own job. I stopped working.
That's what I got that. My friend, you're gonna find out that LeBron don't have the kind of clout that everyone think he got as far as that. They're not gonna just hire him for his son say that. But only time will tell.
Okay.
Time will tell. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Real quickly, got to talk about Masters golf. Everybody, once again, 48-year-old Tiger Woods is a question mark. He's going to play. He says he thinks he can compete. I don't think so. What do you guys think? Who's going to win the Masters if you think about it? And let me start with you, Chuck.
Well, it's interesting. I'll talk more about this in a second because it's my closing remark. But yeah, if he believes that he thinks he can, that's all it takes for me because I'm a huge Tiger Woods fan. And I think either Rahm or Koepka or Scotty Scheffler. I think those three are the names I think are probably favorite to win it.
You're going to watch the Masters, Larry?
No, I don't watch golf.
Okay.
So with respect to your question, I'm taking the field over Tiger.
All right, Earl. All right, Masters golf. Are you watching?
Of course, I'm watching Masters. And the only reason why I like golf today is because of Tiger Woods. Because when I was coming up, they may have had one or two players that was playing. Lee Elder and somebody else, another
Calvin
guy.
Pete.
Yeah, whatever.
Now, keep
But-
in mind, Calvin Pete won 12 tournaments now.
Yeah.
12. He was pretty good.
Okay, but to answer your question,
Uh-huh.
no, Tiger's body is gone. It's gonna take him a couple of years to get his body in the condition that it would need to be in for him to win a tournament like that. He's got a lot of injuries and stuff like that. His body can't keep up with it. He hasn't since 1922. Have he even finished a tournament since he's been playing since 22? I don't think he's even finished the tournament.
I don't think so. I think
He's dropped out of every tournament.
I think he's been that injured.
And the competitor Tiger Woods is, he dropped out of it only for one reason. His body just can't hold up. You know, Tiger he may be even more competitive than Jordan was. I don't know. He's a very competitive player. So his body's not holding up. He just can't physically do it anymore. That's all.
Well, in fairness to athletes, in the prime of his career, from let's say age 21 to the time his wife beat him up, I call it the way it is. Nobody won more tournaments at the rate that Tiger Woods won. After that, it's been sporadic. She beat the winning out of him. You know me. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Closing comments. Let's start with you, Chuck.
Yeah, I do. It's funny that you guys mentioned Tiger because that's what I was going to mention. So tomorrow's the beginning of the Masters. Tiger, it'll be his 25th Masters. He's made 23 of 24 cuts. He's had 23 consecutive. He made the cut last year. So anytime Tiger tees it up at Augusta, for me, it's must-see TV. I'm wishing him well. I'm wishing the weather holds up, and should be pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to it.
Larry, any closing comments?
Yeah, I sort of said some of this earlier today, so I'm going to sort of reiterate some of it, and it has to do with women's basketball. I think the network should be smart enough to realize that this could be profitable for them. And it's not just about Caitlin Clark, but certainly they can ride the her being in the right place in the right time. But I hope they do a better job of giving them an opportunity on TV, giving them TV contracts, and looking at all the players because they have a lot of good players already in the WNBA as well as some that remain in college. I'm counting on the networks to figure out this is a moneymaker for them.
Earl, any closing comment from you?
The officiation. The officials in the pro games, all of them suck. That's all I got to say.
All right, that was very brief. All right, I will conclude by saying I want to talk about real quickly the transfer portal. And there's a downside to the transfer portal. And the biggest example of the downside is Indiana State and what's happening to the Sycamores. The Sycamores had the second best record in school history this year. Last time they were relevant was 45 years ago when Larry Bird led them to the championship game. So not only did they wrongly get snubbed by the NCAA, not getting into the tournament a month ago, but thanks to the transfer portal, Indiana State is losing not one, not two, not three, all of their starters and three more important bench players. And their coach is going to St. Louis. There's something wrong about what just happened. 45 years is a long time for a resurgence. Something is unfair, not right, but it's not going to change. And I feel badly for the fans of Indiana State University and the Sycamores and the state of Indiana. And that's my closing comment. Gentlemen, it's been real. I'm David Burnett, joined by Chuck, Larry, and Earl. This is Real Fellas Talk Sports, and we'll be back next week at 8 o'clock on